Hi, I'm Garmbreak1, and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Michael from the RPG Academy. How's it going?
It's going great, Garm. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you. So you're here to tell us a little bit about Action 12 Cinema, so why don't you tell us about that?
Okay. So been a long time podcaster, a long time gamer. I feel like anyone who has gamed as long as I have, you become kind of an armchair game designer. Like you tweak things, you steal things, you move this, you pull that. And I think just sort of a natural extension of that, I've always had these designs to like try to create my own system and this, that, and the other. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I kind of got just like a wild hair. And it truly started as a joke, and I even reference this in the book that I'm writing for the game, that it was just an absurd attempt to see how many D12s I could get a person to roll at one time. Because I truly believe the D12 is the best die. I think it's just absolutely the best, most fun die to roll at the table. So I came up with this whole elaborate scheme of like this improv game that just double handfuls of D12s. Started running at conventions just sort of like as a joke and with my friends. And what I found is that it's actually a lot of fun to roll a lot of D12s and it's a lot of fun to play improv with your friends. And after the joke started to wear off, I'm like, I kind of have a basis of a game. So I kind of started working backwards and peeling away the things that were just in there for silliness or for fun, like ridiculousness, I should say. And I kind of, the thing that really solidified it into a game, I think, is when I combined it with my love of movies. Those are kind of the two things people know about me if I hang out with you at all is I love movies and I love role-playing games. And so Action 12 Cinema is the game I came up with that is kind of a throwback to some of the movies I grew up watching. WBN, WGN, TBS, TNT, Enemy Mine, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, Alan Quatermain, Lost City of Gold, The Last Starfighter. So not great movies. Cole the Conqueror. We're not talking Star Wars or Die Hard, but those are the types of movies I grew up watching. And so that's what Action 12 Cinema tries to do is it's a GM-less game. It's a zero prep game. So it kind of works a little bit like Fiasco if you're familiar with that. And it has some design elements I stole from Wushu if you're familiar with that game. And it basically helps you create a very bad, maybe even C-level movie, maybe B's too high. Student films, a lot of times our movies seem to be more of a student film project than an actual project. But it walks you through like a 3-act structure. You create NPCs, you create obstacles, you roll a bunch of D12s, you play pretend with your friends, and at the end, hopefully, you have something that you would maybe want to see on a Saturday afternoon on TBS.
I have a deep appreciation for movies that are not technically good, and,
Right.
similar things. Some of my friends, we, get together and watch bad movies every once in a while, or, I'll sit around and watch episodes of good old Mystery Science Theater 3000,
Oh, yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely some of our movies that we've created would fit there. And like to me, there's a difference between a bad movie that's bad to watch and a bad movie that's fun to watch. And we are aiming hardcore at the bad but fun category.
Yeah, it's the like bad but soulful. Like maybe you didn't have enough budget to really get this across. Maybe you couldn't hire people who could actually act or pronounce the
Right.
word werewolf. You know,
It happens.
it's werewolf. Yes,
Werewolf? Werewolf.
over there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that kind of stuff. Um, I appreciate your love of the D12. Several of my favorite dice are D12s. I have some like zodiac sign dice.
Oh, that's
They're
cool.
lovely. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I have never found a use for them, but I have them.
Yeah, well, that's all you need. Yeah, I have some of those double D6s.
Oh yeah.
So I have 12-sided, 6-sided, I have some 12-sided, 4-sided. Like I will roll a D12 or, the shape of the D12 anytime I can. And again, it's not scientific, but I truly believe it's just the most fun die to roll. It's got a good heft to it. It's got a good roll, but it's not so round like the D20. It makes no sense. I know I'm probably just,
Look, at the
being
very
me, but
least, I would always rather roll a D12 than a D4.
oh yeah. And even D6 is like, most of them like, well, I don't say most of them. A lot of them now have like the rounded corners, so you get a nice little tumble to them. But a lot of D6 is just sort of like land. There's like, and there they are. So
Yeah,
I like something that's got a little bounce and a little roll to it. And then D12 hits that perfectly for me.
more dynamic, just like the films that you'll create with Action 12 Cinema.
Exactly.
So, what are the? I mean, the basic mechanics are roll d12s, but how much more to it is there?
Not a lot. It is a very basic dice pool system. So basically, when you create your characters, and it's all loosey goosey, like you just kind of make up your character kind of on the fly if you need to, sort of thing. And again, it kind of leans into the trope of like, oh, I didn't know that you were an astrophysicist. Oh yeah, I took a summer course. That's how I know how to do this exact thing I need to do right at this moment. So you're allowed to make up skills and things that you need in the moment if you would like. But anyways, so you always start with 1d12. So no matter what you're doing, you always start with one. And then based on what you're doing and how you're trying to go about it, you can add more. So there's 4 stats in the game, one for like physical, strength. There's one for like your, intelligence, one for like your savvy. And then there's one that's just called Moxie. And Moxie is anything that's not the other 3. So if you're playing a superhero game, your superhero ability would be your Moxie score. If you like playing the X-Men and like you have telepathy, that would be your Moxie score. So it's sort of the catch-all, everything that's not the other 3. So if you have like 2 is the highest score you can have. So if you're doing something physical, maybe your highest stat is your physical stat. You get 2, that puts you at 3. If you have a skill that applies, you can add 1 or 2 more. If there's a relationship that is dependent on this outcome, and it can be a physical relationship, like there's a character in the scene with me who is my best friend and he or she is going to help me, then I get a bonus die. Or it can be emotional, like, damn it, I can't let my kid down again. I will get to their dance recital. So then you can throw in, again, you're trying to roll D12s. The game's going to let you roll as many as you want, basically. You're going to roll them, and it's 1s are bad, 2s through 7s are nothing, and then 8s and are good, 12s are really, really good. So you do some quick math, and if you end up with a net positive result, then good stuff happens. If you end up with a net negative result, bad things happen. And if you end up with nothing, which doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does, where just absolutely nothing happens, you trigger a villainous cutscene where we get to like take a trip over and you get to explain to us what the bad guy's doing or how they're reacting to our meddling in their plot, sort of a thing. So you always get to describe something cool. Either it happened poorly, nothing happened, so you get to give us a bad guy perspective, or something really good happened and you get to describe how that works. Are you familiar with Wushu? Have you ever played that game?
I've read it. I have never had the chance to run it or
Okay.
play it, unfortunately.
So that's one of the things I stole from Wushu. I played a couple sessions. It's one of my favorite con games. It's just so much fun. Is that because it's a GM-less game, Action 12 Cinema, I mean, there's no one to tell you something doesn't happen. So let's say that we're playing a fantasy game and my character is fighting a bunch of were-orcs or something like that. I can just describe that I take 12 of them out. I can describe in detail how, I kick this one, I throw a knife at that one, I push this one down a well, I convince this one to go away, whatever the case may be. All of that happens without any question. The dice tell me if that actually helped my situation. So if I roll poorly, then I might go, oh, well, those were just the first 12. The worst 24 are just now showing up, or maybe they mutate in some way. The one I threw down the well is like a gremlin, and now like 15 more pop out, and now they're angry, or I can make up whatever silliness I need to. If I rolled really well, then I took out those 12, but there's 12 more around the bend, or there's only one left, but it's the super big one. So it's, so the roll basically tells you how close you are to ending that scene, but it doesn't tell you what actually happened because you control that yourself at all times. You get to describe whatever you want, however you want, and it's as cool, over the top, actiony as you want. That's all your purview. The dice just say, yep, you're now closer to ending the scene, or actually, no, you're further away because you rolled really badly.
I love that. I deeply adore the villainous cutscene bit. Like that is
Yes.
incredible. There's nothing worse than, well, I guess nothing happens.
Right. And that's, again, it evolved over time because that wasn't what always happened. But, it doesn't happen, again, doesn't happen a lot in the dice system, but every now and then you have someone who's like, I rolled nothing and that's not fun. So I'm like, well, what can we do if nothing happens? It's like, oh yeah. Cause again, because it's a GM-less game, everybody gets to kind of create what they want. So this is a chance for the game to let you get to decide what the bad guys are, how they're responding to us, responding to them. If it happens very early, you get to kind of decide what their overall, strategy might be. So I just want you to always have something fun to do on your turn. And that definitely grew out of the play testing process.
These fools think that they can infiltrate my volcano fortress. Send
Exactly.
out the hyperhounds. Okay, Cannon, you can go back down now. She was here. I had to take advantage.
No fault here. Again, if a cat jumps in your lap, you have to pet it and then pretend like you're an evil villain. It's
Yeah.
just that's just rules.
That's wonderful. Um, so is there like a mechanic for a number of set successes towards end of scene then? Like a counter or something?
Yeah. So the game works in a very loose 3-act structure. So in the first act, you have one obstacle, and all the obstacles are abstracted much as you need them to be. And there's a chart that you will roll on that says, okay, for the first obstacle, it is X, Y, or Z. And then you do have to play around sometimes in like the table because there's no GM has to kind of like figure out what these mean. So, like for example, I had a chance to do an actual play of this over on the Tabletop Journeys podcast. So please, if if you have a chance, anyone listening now, go listen to that because I think that was a really fun version of the game. We rolled for quicksand because you got to have quicksand, right? That's just by laws you have to have that in an action movie. But the other things that we had rolled, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to have actual muddy water in the ground quicksand. So we interpreted that as we were in a skyscraper building that was being shrunk, was slowly getting smaller, and we had to get out. There was another playtest we did where we rolled that the main bad person, bad guy, bad girl, was a wizard. But we had already decided that this was going to be a 1980s sort of standard, action movie. So then we said, okay, well, the wizard is the name of this evil tech conglomerate. He rules Wizard Corp, and he's basically like using homeless people to like do these science experiments with his computer technology. So everything in the game can be abstracted however you want it to be. But in Act 1, your obstacle comes in with what I call 12 complication points or obstacle points. And essentially, you're just trying to get that to 0. So you roll a bunch of D12s, 8s, 9s, 10s, and 11s all count as 1, 12s count as 2, 1s count as -1. And again, you do all the math, you go, okay, I have 3 successes. That 12 is now down to a 9. So essentially, I'm 25% of the way towards the act ending. And then the next person goes. On average, you need 3 to 4 rolls to complete an obstacle. So usually everybody gets at least one turn. Sometimes it goes a lot longer. I've had it go a lot shorter. There's some tips and the tricks. If someone just absolutely just blows the math out of the water and rolls nothing but 12s 13 times in a row, and by the game, they have completed the obstacle, but there's nothing that says you still can't let everybody take their turn and just be as super cool and awesome as they want, as long as at the end, the act is over, you haven't violated the rules of the game. So there are some, built-in corner cases, but for the most part, everybody's going to get a turn or two. And then in Act 2, you have 2 obstacles that either overlap or lead into each other. Again, you roll the obstacles randomly and you decide what makes the most sense. And in the third act, you have 3, but the 2 of them are at half. So they come in at 6 points, and you have one. And you think of it almost like a video game where you have to get through the first 2 first. So it might be like, a laser gridded security system and then like bionic werewolf guards. You get through those, then you can actually fight the main bad person who might be like an alien from the future type of a thing. So again, it's all random rolls. So part of the game is figuring out how the heck do we make all this make sense? And I find that to be one of the most fun parts of the game because it's very much a storytelling game as much as it is a role-playing game. So we give you all these weird prompts that don't really make sense together. And the fun is like, okay, well, it doesn't have to make sense. But how can we make it make the most amount of sense? Because anything that doesn't make sense, we're like, oh, there was a rewrite, or budget cuts, or something like that happened. New director came in, we changed actors. You can always make up some meta excuse for why things don't line up perfectly, but it should make some sense, I think.
Right, right. One of the lovely hallmarks of bad movies, we ran out of budget, or we rented this van, we're gonna use it.
We're going to use it all over and over and over again. I talk about it's the types of movies that you create with this game is the sort of thing where you don't have the budget to show the spaceship. So you just have your characters looking in the distance with lights playing on their face and they just describe the indescribable spaceship. Like that's the type of movie we're dealing with, or one where you throw a bomb just off screen because you couldn't figure out what else to do with it, and it just no one has to worry about it again, type of a thing.
Wow, what a cool and hard to animate sequence.
Yes, I wish I had the words to describe how beautiful this is. Oh, and then you
The
just cut to the next day.
the indescribable creatures from the bottom of the sea whose anatomy I am incapable of describing. Yes.
Exactly. That is exactly the type of movie we're going to build with this game.
That's beautiful. And like I love those kind of like improv heavy things. Like I've played a ton of Super Fight in my time, and this plays very much into that same kind of like, here are some prompts, do your best kind of
Exactly.
niche. Yeah. Right on. Are there any other aspects of Action 12 Cinema that you'd like to bring up while we're here?
I'm sure there's things I should say. Again, we're still very early in the process, so there's some like specifics that I just don't have the answers to yet. But basically, again, there's a setup phase where you use all the random D12. Everything's a D12 in the game, and you're going to lay out, who your main bad person is. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll grab it here. Well, actually, so the first thing you decide is what genre, and by default, I just what I call action. And that's like anything that had Arnold Schwarzenegger or, Sylvester Stallone in the 80s. But then we have a bunch of different genres you can roll, like, creature feature, disaster movies, martial arts, sci-fi. And if you roll a 12, you get to roll more than once and you get to mash them up together. I was doing a playtest once. I was actually dressed up as Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly. And just by perfect kismet, we actually ended up rolling sci-fi and Western. So we basically made it a Firefly game.
Nice.
And then you roll to see who your bad guy is or bad person. Again, there's a bunch of charts, and there's things like kaiju, aliens, mad scientists, robots, super villains, Sasquatch. There's just all kinds of just weird things on there, cosmic horrors. And then you figure out what your plot's going to be. And again, a lot of these are very just sort of generic. So like, hold the world hostage. That's one of the plots that you might come up with, or build killer robots, open a wormhole, propaganda film. Either you're trying to make one or you're trying to keep one from being made, those types of things. So you just go through all these different charts, and it just sort of lays out everything that you're trying to do for the story. You create your characters, you create some NPCs or extras as they're called in the game that, the love interest, the person who's in danger, the mentor that you go to for help, your ex-contact who's inside the organization, all that kind of good stuff. But one of probably my favorite things I'll talk about is tropes. Because that's what makes a good movie, and a bad movie, and hopefully in this case, a bad good movie, is action movie tropes. And these are the things that, you don't look at explosions, you walk away from them. No matter what I'm in, I can drive it. You can always find the keys. The knockout gas will always be green, whatever the case may be. So I have like 200 tropes that I've collected off the internet and other sources. And you randomly roll a set number of tropes, and you can bring them into a scene to get a bonus on your die. So the way the game works, it's very easy to get dice. That's just the way it works, or die, I should say. If something happens where you just can't get as many, or you think this is a very important scene, I really need to roll well here, you can bring in a trope that's been generated as like, here's one of your options, and that gives you a bonus to the roll. You can always do that anytime. It's a lot of fun to try to bring these tropes in, but we give you a mechanic for if you can use this specific one in this specific scene, then you get a bonus to the roll, you get an extra die and that kind of thing. And then we have things like heroic trait. Like that's what makes my hero a hero. And it could be things like, I'm too stupid to know when to quit. And so you can get bonus die for that. You have an Achilles heel, which is what gets you into trouble, which can also be, I'm too stupid to know when to quit. So it can actually be both. Because again, that's the type of movie we're dealing with. And that's one of my favorite mechanics, because when you use your Achilles heel, you get extra die. But if you roll ones, they count as double failures. So it's a high risk, high reward. You get to roll a lot of die, but if you roll poorly, things absolutely fall apart on you. Which, the way the game's designed, you can't die unless you just choose to. Like, you're an action movie hero. You're going to win. So rolling poorly just extends the scene and gives you more complications to deal with. And as long as that's fun, great. But you can always there's a mechanic that declare a rewrite. Like if it's gone on, people can't roll and the scene is no longer fun, you're just like, okay, rewrite. Scenes, that act's over and we just move into the next act. You're more playing pretend with D12s than anything. Like that's absolutely what I'm going for.
Right, this is not a serious script writing session. Yeah.
No. The only goal here is to have fun, and so if you've stopped having fun, move on. Go on to the next thing that will be fun again. Like I don't expect this to be a game that like takes over and becomes the next D&D. Like that is not in any way what I expect. This is damn it, Sarah can't be here tonight. Her character's too important with the plot. We really can't play. I don't want to cancel. Hey, let's play this. I don't have to prep anything. There's no GM. We like bad movies. It's absolutely a con game, one shot, or a fill in because your actual game can't go sort of a thing. That's the market I'm aiming this game for. Is that's its niche.
Yeah, absolutely. I can already think of tons of people I want to play this with.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, no, like this seems wonderful. This is coming to Kickstarter, right?
That is the plan. Again, you very graciously agreed to have me on very early in the process. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of specifics. We're aiming for March of 2023. I don't think it'll be any earlier, and I don't want it to be any later. So I don't have the date, but I'm 99% it will be in March at sometime 2023. Don't have any idea what my goals are going to be, stretch goals. Like really, all I want is to get this in print. Like it's been a dream of mine since I was a little kid. I wanted to be a writer. I assumed it would be like fiction stories. I grew up reading Tolkien and all that kind of stuff, and fantasy stories. Complete Book of Swords and Wheel of Time and all that kind of good stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna be a fantasy writer. It hasn't turned out, but the idea of having a book on a shelf that has my name on it will literally make me just burst into tears when I make that happen. So the number one thing I'm trying to do is just pay for a print run. I can get this book out there and people play the game and have fun. But if we do well, I want to get additional art. There might be a couple stretch goals we can create, like digital assets. It's a very simplified game, but maybe roll 20 assets. I don't know how to do that. I'll have to hire somebody. But basically I'm just trying to get a copy of the game in print. Even if it's just one copy. I just want one copy for my bookshelf. Hopefully other people will also buy it, but that's kind of the goal. So I expect the goal to be fairly reasonable for my first Kickstarter for a product. Again, I know I'm answering questions you haven't asked yet, but so in March, pretty reasonable goal. Follow me on Twitter for, I'm sure I will be updating it. I also have an account on Mastodon now in case Twitter falls apart. I'm at the RPG Academy. Pretty much anywhere you find that, it's probably me.
Right on. Even if it doesn't have a $8 check mark on it.
Oh, never. I would absolutely never do that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, like I said, this sounds fantastic and it sounds like a ton of fun. I'm a sucker for just schlock, basically.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the game The Mind?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. So this is when I think about my game, this is the first thing that comes to mind. It's a game called The Mind. And it's a game that at the same time makes me angry and jealous because the game, whoever invented it should be ashamed of themselves. But at the same time, they made a fun game. And all it is a deck of cards that are numbered 1 to 100. That's it. And like say you and I are playing, we deal one card to each other. I see my card, you see your card. We're not allowed to tell each other what our numbers are, but we have to lay them down in the correct order. That's the game. I have 7, I lay it down. You have 58, you lay it down. We've won. But then we do it again. Now we get 2 cards and we get 3 cards and then you get 4 cards. All it is trying to figure out how quickly do I think you are going to lay your cards down or is my cards lower or higher than yours? And obviously you have 4 or 5 people. It's a little bit different. But it is so much fun to play this game in a group of 4 or 5 people at like a game night, first game, kind of get everybody's juices flowing. But it's just a deck of cards that go 1 to 100. Whoever came up with that should be ashamed of themselves. And yet I have like 3 copies and I give them away because I think it's such a fun game. That's what I'm going for. Like I did not invent a new genre of role-playing games. It's a D12 dice pool system. But I think that the order that I have put the words together will allow you to have fun playing the game, even if you are somewhat going, is this really a game? Because you're going to have fun playing it. And that's all I care about.
I mean, it's more of a game than a lot of things I've seen. Shout out to Monopoly. Sorry, at the very mention of Monopoly, I am just gone. Filled with rage,
I Yeah, completely understand. Again, but just I again to restate, it's not a super complicated game, but if you love bad movies, then you probably will have. Well, again, if you love bad movies, if you like improv, and you like rolling d12s, this has all of those. And if that's enough for you, then hopefully you'll support the game. Again, I don't even know what cost levels are going to be, but they're going to be reasonable. It's my first game. It's not going to be too expensive. I'm going to have PDF options. But anybody who can support in any way, again, literally making a dream come true for me.
Also, if you've got theater kid friends that you're looking to seduce into our dark satanic hobby, this is the
Yep,
perfect gateway.
this could be a gateway drug. Everybody likes movies.
Everybody likes movies. Uh, well, it's been wonderful having you on. I can't wait to have a chance to play this.
I again super appreciate. I'll happily send you the current draft copy if you want to try to set up a game with your friends. I'd love to hear back, even if it was terrible. I'd love to hear what went wrong because I still got time to make changes. But I've had enough people do play tests without me. I think you'll still have a fun time despite the book, if not because of it.
I will do my best.
Fantastic.
Yes, Michael, thank you for coming on. Check out the links below to, follow the RPG Academy at a variety of places. That'll be either in the description or the top comment, depending on exactly how ambitious I feel. Um, yeah, and yeah, I think that's it from us. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.